10. Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014. When Guardians of the Galaxy was added to Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe (MCU) lineup, much was made of how risky a move it was, the first of the MCU properties that didn't feature a major Marvel character. Surprise, surprise, when you make the most enjoyable space opera romp since The Fifth Element, name recognition just not seem to matter. Director and co-writer, James Gunn takes the somewhat obscure, to non-comic book fans, team and keeps the source material's tone, attitude and bombastic settings intact. As the self-named Star-Lord, Peter Quill, Chris Pratt, presents viewers with a pretty irresistible amalgam of Han Solo, Mal Reynolds and Captain Kirk. Pratt owns this role. The scene-stealing duo of Rocket, voiced by Bradley Cooper, and Groot, voiced by Vin Diesel, also provides the latest reminder of how convincing mocap-aided CGI has become. Within moments after being introduced to them, I was yearning for a Rocket and Groot buddy picture. Frankly, it's hard to compete with Quill, Rocket and Groot, but Drax, Dave Bautista, and Gamora, Zoe Saldana, don't need to shine as brightly. Unlike the Avengers, one doesn't get the sense each team member's time center stage is being meticulously measured. Not everything fits together perfectly. There's a mining pod sequence that felt like it was put there for the video game tie-in, and at times the "let me tell you about me" exposition strikes one more as an effort to allay studio exec nerves than to meet actual audience needs, but ultimately Guardians is too fun to be much weighed down by its flaws. The film's final position on this list is also recognition of the heavy lifting it did, reassuring studio execs that second and third-tier characters like Ant-Man or Deadpool, for example, were worth the risk. See full review, MB. 9. X2, X-Men United, 2003. One can count on one hand the number of superhero films potentially superior to Bryan Singer's 2003 sequel to his 2000's X-Men, and still end up with fingers left over. From its incomparably stunning opening sequence, demonstrating the full power of the best reasons for humans to fear mutants, to its ending grace note of bittersweet victory, X2 represented a full step forward to legitimizing comic books as a valid source of drama and excitement on the silver screen. The returning cast, including Sirs Patrick Stewart and Ian Cullen and of course Hugh Jackman's iconic portrayal of Marvel favorite, Wolverine, are complemented beautifully by Alan Cummings' haunted Catholic teleporter, Nightcrawler, and Brian Cox's brilliantly villainous turn as the mutant-hating military scientist, Call Stryker. Even with so many beloved characters to juggle, Singer never loses focus on which one works in any given scene to propel the thrills and emotional center of the story. It's an awesome ensemble action movie. It's a movie about a marginalized but powerful population of people struggling to take the high road in the face of bigotry. It's both, and it rocks. Scott Wold. 8. Captain America, Civil War, 2016. The Russo brothers' second film in the Captain America trilogy, and their last before tackling the upcoming two-part Avengers, Infinity War films, Civil War maintains the same balance of action and significant, if brief, character development, interaction that made Winter Soldier so enjoyable. The fight and chase scenes are frenetic without being confusing, while the comic relief, mostly supplied by our bug-themed heroes, provides a wet and flavored lightening of the otherwise dark proceedings. Even more impressive, The film introduces two additional MCU Phase 3 stars, one brand new to filmgoers and the other oh so familiar, and both generate a real sense of man, I can't wait to see his solo film. All this is achieved without once veering too far from the core plot of the film. If one thinks of each MCU film as a juggling act and each hero's origin, flavor and power set as its own subset of items that must be kept in motion and in proper relation with each other, then as a series both Avengers films and Captain America: Civil War can be seen as an escalation of the routine that's as impressive as it is necessary. After all, with each additional hero added, with each additional demand placed on the script in both action and dialogue, Kevin Feige and company are building toward infinity. See full review, MB. 7. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 2017. To a large extent, GOT Volume 2 follows the playbook from the first film, though now, with the entire cast familiar faces to the audience, Gunn skips introductions and goes right to the funny. In this case, that means an opening credits sequence featuring the entire team and what amounts to a highlight reel of character traits meant to amuse, rapid banter from Star-Lord, Chris Pratt, and Rocket Raccoon, Bradley Cooper, humorous roid rage from Drax, Dave Bautista, quiet attitude from Gamora, Zoe Saldana, and an extended cute Groot frolic. During this sequence and throughout the movie, the comic elements of this particular space opera feel as if they have been ratcheted up. But though he doesn't seem to want the audience to have too much time between laughs, Gunn also seems determined to match the increased comic volume with more heart. Daddy issues, sibling rivalry, friendship struggles and questions of what makes a family, all themes present in the first film, are even more evident in the sequel. That's not to say they are subtly or deeply explored. This is space opera, after all, but they give the proceedings a bit more oomph than if it were all quips and pratfalls. By the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the audience is unlikely to feel they've seen anything that different from Volume 1, but it's clear that Gunn and company knew exactly what qualities made the first film so enjoyable, and what they needed to do to make sure this particular sequel was worth the wait. See full review, Michael Bergen. 6. Thor: Ragnarok, 2017. Like the GOT films, the closest non-Thor cousins in tone and spirit to Thor, Ragnarok director Taika Waititi's film opens with a lively prologue, set piece involving its protagonist Thoring like a boss accompanied by a rockin' tune. In a nod to all the comic book fans Jonesing to see Mjolnir put through its paces, Thor just all-out wrecks all who oppose him. From there, Waititi keeps the pace swift, resolving a few plot cliffhangers, throwing down an extended cameo from the master of the mystic arts, introducing this film's big bad in Hela, a dependably enjoyable Cate Blanchett, propelling Thor, and Loki, to their next stop on the It's a Big Universe Express, meeting new faces, Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster and Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie foremost among them, and reuniting with everyone's favorite green-thewed god Pumbler before bringing it all back for the big finale in Asgard. The result? One of those 2-hour-plus films that you'll swear was just an hour 40. Granted, there are times when Waititi's signature deadpan conversational levity doesn't quite work, when the achieved effect is distracting awkward instead of funny awkward, but that's an unavoidable byproduct of prolonged comic riffs and, more importantly, the audience is not given much time to ponder before the next joke, or gorgeous action shot, is upon them. By now, it's not saying anything new to appreciate how well Chris Hemsworth occupies the role of the God of Thunder. Or even, after his turn in the Ghostbusters reboot, to marvel at his comic chops. Nonetheless, Waititi seems to delight in exploring the interplay between Hemsworth's physical and comic presence. It yields a version of Thor that might annoy some comic book purists, but certainly didn't this one, but it's an undeniable asset for the franchise. Some years and a few Avengers films remain before we'll know what's next for Thor, and whether it will involve Hemsworth, but after seeing Thor, Ragnarok, I'm suddenly eager to find out. See full review, Michael Bergen. '5. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, 2014. Directed by brothers Joe and Anthony Russo, Captain America: The Winter Soldier picks up post-Avengers with Steve Rogers, Captain America, Chris Evans, in the modern day trying to be that quaint relic from his earlier life during World War II, the good soldier. But the black and white ethical landscape of that time has been displaced by countless shades of gray. Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, the Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford, and SHIELD itself are all embodiments of a more complex present than that to which Cap is accustomed. To their credit, screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely suggest early and often that no matter how much simpler the age from which Captain America has sprung, he's not stupid. They also suggest, and this is something Captain America has had in common with Superman almost from the beginning, that one of Cap's unofficial and less showy superpowers may just be a keen, correct sense of what's right and wrong. But no worries, Captain America: The Winter Soldier consists of more than moral quandaries and Steve Rogers sending discerning or suspicious looks in the direction of those around him. The brothers Russo have made, first and foremost, a thrilling action film. Starting with a perfectly paced rescue mission nicely leavened with a relationship banter between Evans and Johansson's characters, the film has little downtime. This is especially true once the titular bad guy, Sebastian Stan, enters the picture, in an effort to erase Fury from it, but in truth, the movie is filled with enjoyable moments, both quiet and action-packed. That, along with the pitch-perfect casting of Evans as Cap, makes The Winter Soldier a worthy addition to the ranks of flat-out fantastic sequels. See full review, MB. 4. Spider-Man 2, 2004. Sam Raimi's second turn at the franchise helm yielded what at the time was arguably the best superhero film ever, and one that, as its ranking on this list shows, holds up well a decade later. Spider-Man 2 relies on the same formula which made the first so well-received: non-intrusive fan service, callbacks to the classic comics coupled with a faithful enough rendition of a classic Spider-Man villain. Though his origin drifts a bit from the comics, Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus is a delight, giving the film an emotional resonance on both sides of the classic hero-villain dichotomy, even as it provides the wall-crawler with an intelligent, deadly foe. The film also features one of the best fight scenes in the history of comic book films, made even better by the emotional punch of its conclusion, as an unconscious Spidey is supported and protected by the New Yorkers he has saved. Sadly, this effort would prove the apex of the Raimi/Maguire/Sony collaboration and the best of the Spider-Man films thus far, though with the web-zingers inclusion in the MCU, there's hope. MB. 3. The Dark Knight, 2008. Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, 2005, deserves the collective sigh of relief it received in resuscitating the Caped Crusaders' cinematic reputation following Joel Schumacher's 1997 neon disco nightmare on ice that was Batman and Robin. And if Batman Begins represents the character's tonal course correction, The Dark Knight provided an equally important act of rehabilitation, that of Batman's arch-nemesis, the Joker. Let's face it, though not a crime of Schumacherian dimensions, Jack Nicholson's Joker fell short of setting a standard for the character. Though ostensibly part of the superhero stable, The Dark Knight is, at its center, a proper crime saga, just as was its source, spawning from the pages of Detective Comics. Nolan's take on Gotham's cowled vigilante is less Spider-Man than it is Heat, in rather dramatic costume. Significantly trading up in the villain department this round, Heath Ledger's performance as the clown prince of crime is a force of nature, brilliantly written as a crime boss who wants no less than Gotham's very soul. Ledger's Joker is as chilling as he is darkly funny, and the most bracing reminder to date of why he's the most renowned foe of the world's greatest detective. It's also the reason the film ranks as high as it does on our list. SW 2. The Avengers, 2012. Nestled amongst the gaudy box office numbers, $1.55 billion, of Joss Whedon's blockbuster is a much simpler achievement. Yes, The Avengers should evoke a deserved appreciation of Whedon's directorial skills. And yes, the film's release and reception make for a natural and that's when it was official moment that the MCU took over Hollywood. But for comic book fans especially, The Avengers represents the first instance of the superhero team dynamic truly captured and sustained on film. Even though the X-Men, 4 times, and the Fantastic Four, twice, had received big screen treatment, those films were all still pretty static. The interaction between both heroes and villains were slow, separate vignettes rather than two-way, three-way or more-way battles. If Raimi's Spider-Man showed why comic book superheroes are fun, The Avengers showed why superhero teams are. The X-Men franchise fared much better at this with X-Men, Days of Future Past. Josh Trank's Fantastic Four reboot, not so much, MB. #1. The Incredibles, 2004. All the leaps and bounds taken in the genre in the last 10 years alone, it should not be possible that the best superhero film ever is an animated film that came about separately from Marvel, DC or any of the companies in the business of making comics. Yet, here we are. 12 years after Bob, Craig T. Nelson, Helen, Holly Hunter, Violet, Sarah Vowell, and Dash, Spencer Fox, dealt with some rather serious Buddy, Jason Lee, issues, The Incredibles remains the gold standard, a deft balance of heart, humor and superheroics. The Pixar film is suffused with wit and wonder, with the oh-so-familiar family dynamic of the family par being just as crucial to the final product as Syndrome's Bond-worthy supervillain hideout and dastardly plan. In hindsight, The Incredibles deserves an additional accolade. Brad Bird's film shows just how one can include dark themes in a superhero film yet not jettison all the other things that make the genre fun and awe-inspiring. The Incredibles takes place in a world where superheroes have been banned by the government. Syndrome's plan has already claimed the lives of at least 15 supers by the time Mr. Incredible becomes involved. And there's that little aside from Edna Mode regarding capes and the Crusaders undone by them, and yet, this is still a world where the danger and darkness, as well as the all-too-human traits of our protagonists, can exist side by side with the wonder inherent in a reality where people have super-freaking powers. Take note, Warner Brothers, and anyone else driven by the need to inject a comic book property with grit and realism. Please, MB.